Hello there, my name is Elaine McBarron and I am contributing to the Wellness Chest. Many thanks to Jenny for the invitation to get involved. I will try and keep this brief. I'm going to offer you a trinity of tools, tools that I've used with training participants in the last little while, but also in individual client work as well. I hope that you might find them of use to help explain and maybe respond to the challenging times that we are all living in. So here are the tools. The first tool is called the change curve. And it helps to explain how we respond to change and the different phases that we go through during that. The second tool is called the SWOT analysis, and it's a very useful tool to help us to audit the situation we're in versus or against what we're hoping to achieve. And then the third suggestion is a little tool called a letter to your future self. So without further ado, I will show you what the change curve is telling us. So the change curve or the transition curve explains the different phases we go through when we are faced with change or challenge. We know that change is an inevitable and often welcome part of our life. It offers us stimulation, gives us new experiences to be excited about. However, we also like to operate in a world that we can predict a certain amount, in a world that feels safe and secure. So when we go through unexpected change, we can often go through these cycles, or these stages. So the first stage is shock. Second then is denial. Then we move into a certain of awareness of the change that and the emotions around that. We move through acceptance, experimentation, searching, and integration. And you'll notice that there's kind of a developing movement from a rigid state of shock or a freeze state of shock into hoping maybe that the change will go away and we won't have to face the reality of the change, into maybe more of an awareness that change is here to stay, or that this change is here to stay. And that sometimes can be the most challenging part, because then we are faced with all of the emotions around that. Once we are getting into the stage of acceptance, we are beginning to let go, and we are beginning to get a little bit more comfortable with the new normal, as everyone is talking about it. And then we go from acceptance into maybe experimenting, testing new ways of doing things, testing new routines. And I think we're all a lot in that sort of a stage as well. And then we move through searching and move through integrating the new skills and attitudes into our new daily lives. So I think we can certainly see a response to COVID within this transition curve, but also any personal reaction to COVID, but also to maybe changes in our circumstances, whether it's in work or in our businesses. We may be able to track how we're doing based on this transition curve. And you might also know that it's very closely linked to the stages of grief. And I suppose it's no surprise that that is the case, because when we go through grief, there is also a quite a significant stage of letting go. And I think, like grief, when we are going through these stage processes, there are some things that we can do to help us along the way. The first thing is to acknowledge that it's difficult and acknowledge the pain of the change. And I think that is, I suppose, what people are doing at the moment, is acknowledging that, but also that we are on that sort of cycle of change is going to be different. We're all going to have a unique experience of that. The other really important things, I suppose, is to reach out for support, because that is a really important, I suppose, protective factor during change. And another suggestion might be to reach out and to look after your physical health, but also maybe take up some tangible creative pursuits which can really help you work through difficult emotions as well. So that's the change curve. And now we're going to go into the SWOT analysis. So the SWOT analysis is a really quick, useful tool to analyze how we're doing versus a goal that we may have. It also is a way to check how ready we are to make a change or to make a move. And it looks at 4 areas: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So the strengths are all in relation to these things, which are personal qualities, skills, experiences, resources, and support. Weaknesses are in those same categories as well. opportunities can be both short and long term. So a couple of questions you could ask yourself when you're looking at your strengths in relation to a challenge could be, what do I do better than anybody else? What personal resources do I have access to? What do other people say are my strengths? And another question could be, what are the achievements I'm most proud of? If we move to weaknesses, we could ask ourselves, what tasks do I usually avoid because I don't feel confident or I don't particularly like doing them? Do I have any negative work habits that are getting in the way of my progress? Do I have any personality traits that are getting in the way of my progress? For instance, there could be if you are a particularly shy or introverted person and you feel networking could be very useful for you in your business or your personal careers, it can be very challenging. However, you can network if you are an introverted person. It's just creative ways around that. So if you face up to that, what could be seen as a weakness in relation to networking, then it gives you an opportunity to explore maybe ways around that as well. In terms of opportunities, we're looking for, are there new technologies out there that could help you? If your industry is changing or growing, in what trends could you maybe respond to those? Another one could be if their customers are giving you comments or complaints about a particular part of your business, is there something you could do to respond to those complaints or suggestions or comments? In terms of threats, what obstacles are getting in your way in relation to moving forward? Are there any changing technologies out there that you haven't really engaged with and you probably should in relation to your goal for yourself? And could any of the weaknesses become threats for you in relation to your goal? So, an important part of this process is to think about what you want to achieve first in as much detail and as specifically as you can, because the more specific you are in relation to goal, the more useful the SWOT analysis will be. It can be used on a personal basis, but it also can be used for businesses as well. The third and final tool is this idea of a letter to your future self. So my suggestion is to take 15 minutes, find a nice place to sit, maybe have a nice cup of coffee or tea with you, separate piece of paper and a pen or a pencil that you enjoy writing with. And then follow these instructions. So this is a letter to yourself in the future. So we're going to do a little bit of Michael J. Fox now and Back to the Future. So what that means is, first of all, we have to do in the first part of our letter, we have to describe the reality we're living today. So in as much detail as you can, describe your routines, your tasks, your activities, the people around you, your environment that you're living and working in. Also, reflect on your energy and your emotional levels in the moment of writing the letter. How are you feeling? What is your energy level? What are your energy levels like? And then finally, a little bit of a consideration of what motivates you at the moment and what are you curious about at the moment. So that's the first part of your letter. The second part of your letter is to describe in as much detail the reality that you hope to be living in a year from now. So the same kind of ideas. Describe your environment, the people that are around you, the activities that you're now doing, the tasks that you're doing, and the routines that you're now involved in. Envisage that in as much detail as you can and think about the look and feel of that future a year from now, 12 months from now. Then the suggestion is you sign that letter, putting on your mark, putting a date to it, sealing it up, putting it somewhere safe, and on the front of it writing open in a year from now. So if you did the letter today, you'd say open 16th of October 2021. And writing a letter to your future self has a number of benefits, I think. The first thing that it does is that it helps you to envisage, but also maybe get a firmer hold on the kind of life you want to be living. Without COVID having come into our life, we can put off things that we really, really want to do. So envisaging that future, the look and feel of that future can really start to put a shape on your priorities, your personal mission for yourself and your family, the values that you want to live by. It's giving it some shape and some form. The other thing that I think it really can do is that it can really, I suppose, help you to identify what's good in your life at the moment. What is, I suppose, important for you at the moment as well. And it really links into this idea of what Mary Oliver said in her poem, one of her poems. And she says, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So I ask you, tell me, what do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? We have only one wild and precious life to lead. And we've all made huge sacrifices in the last few months in relation to what that life is and what has been able to be for us in the last few months. And I really hope that these three little tools might give you some sense, might give you some reference point to help look into our future, work with our current reality, be compassionate with ourselves in relation to the challenges and what we're finding difficult in relation to the change curve. Um, and I hope that you all stay well and stay safe. And if you do need to get in touch with me, if you're interested in looking at these kind of areas around professional and career movement, you'll get me on Elaine at mycareercompass.ie. Many thanks.